What up, family? Today, I had Jacob Riglin and a live interview with an epic audience at the Kin in Venice, California. Jacob is a straight-up powerhouse in digital content creation. With over a decade of experience, Jacob has transformed the landscape by working with Fortune 500 brands, creating high-quality visual assets that resonate across platforms. As the founder of Jacob Media, he brings a unique blend of creativity and business acumen, collaborating with leading brands like Audi, Bugatti, Marriott, and many more. His impressive following of over 1.7 million on socials reflects his talent and influence in the industry. Jacob's journey is marked by a commitment to authenticity, balancing personal life with brand partnerships. We dive into his creative process, the role of AI in content creation, and the importance of purpose-driven brands in today's market. Whether discussing his first big break or sharing advice for aspiring creators, Jacob's insights are both inspiring and actionable. Guys, if you like the show, please share it with a homie or on social media, and definitely subscribe. It truly means the world to me, and you're helping to be a part of this consciousness revolution that we're experiencing. Enjoy the show. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome. All right, welcome to the Conscious Prophets Unfiltered podcast, a live recording. Welcome to the Kin here in Venice. If you've never been to the Kin, this is truly an amazing space. It's a memberships network for conscious entrepreneurs. It's also a co-working space upstairs, and a lot of beautiful events here happen constantly. I don't even know how y'all have so many events per week. It's like amazing events one after the other. So really cool. We're excited to have Jacob Riglin with us today. So yeah, man. And also welcome to LA out here from London. So good to have you, brother.
It's been 5 years now, but I still appreciate the welcome.
Well, you were just in London though. You just got here, bro. You just flew here.
Yeah, I did. To be fair, we got in a couple of weeks ago. It's nice to be home. I get the welcome home from the customs officers as well, which
That's
is
so
nice.
nice.
Because beforehand it was like, who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah.
I don't trust what you're doing. And now it's like, welcome home. I'm like, oh,
It's
nice.
so nice.
Yeah.
Does anybody out here have global entry? Anybody global entry? That's like the coolest thing,
I still
right?
haven't done mine. I still haven't done it.
Dude, that's like the ultimate welcome home. You just
know.
walk through.
But I think there's part of me that likes still going through the security, because now that I actually have my visa and stuff sorted. Before I was like, oh God, like I'm going through, like it might be risky and they might turn me down, because it happens a lot. But now I go through and I think my ego likes them saying, welcome.
I love that.
Instead of the global entry, we were just straight through.
Love it. Well, you're home here with all of us, so welcome.
Hey, guys.
What is the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you when your last oh shit moment was?
Last oh shit moment. First thing that comes to mind was probably today. Well, it's a small thing today because my wife and I had a bit of an argument, and I was like, oh shit, here's an opportunity for us to both look at our process and figure out how we're looking at the situation and do it. It was actually more of like an aha oh shit than a oh shit, which is beautiful for me, because I feel like I've been on this little bit of my own personal journey, and I'm trying to look at how anything that happens in my reality is just a reflection of how I'm approaching it. And that was one of those moments this morning. So
that's beautiful.
First, oh shit. Less crazy than like a, oh fuck, I'm jumping out of an airplane.
Right.
I like to do, but that felt more real in the moment today.
I love that. No, thanks for sharing that. And I'll ask you, I would ask you something later, but I'll ask you now. You and your wife, Aggie, share a lot of your life on social media. And what I like is that you don't just share your highs. You know, there's a lot of sharing of challenges there as well. So how do you balance between the authenticity and also maintaining privacy?
It's a really good question. I think my wife, Aggie, she's unbelievable at being able to share. And I think it's a unique trait for someone to be able to share truly authentically on Instagram, because everyone wants to have a filter and only show the good stuff. But I feel like that's not then actually showing up authentically, because you're not showing. If you're showing the good stuff, you should show the bad stuff in theory. Right. And I think she does a really good job at that. And I think my journey on Instagram was literally just posting travel content. That was where I began. My Instagram account was me sharing my photography. It was never at least back then, it wasn't a personal account more dedicated to myself versus the work I create. But in the last few years, as obviously Instagram's shifted and the narrative has shifted, I think for many people wanting to get to know the person behind an account and understand them better, I think it's important to find this balance between the two. And I think if you're going to do one, then you should do the other. That's just, I think, a fair rule of thumb, that like you then can't, in my opinion, expect people not to be annoyed that you're not sharing something if you're sharing one half of it, only the good stuff, and then disappear when something bad happens. But then again, like you said, I think there's an interesting conversation around when is enough in that regard, right?
Right.
And I think you have to decide on what world you're in, you know?
And then there's this aspect too where you see a lot of people sharing also when they're really going through the shit too. And I admire it, but I also feel like I personally couldn't do that. I feel like I could maybe share about the challenges perhaps after they've happened and I've come out on the other side. But I think that's also personal preference too.
Yeah, I think that there's a level of like, is there a message you can share that's going to ultimately help people, right? If you're using Instagram as a platform to support other people on their journey, when stuff's not so good, there's a lot of value in that, how that you're approaching that process. And I think if there is any value that you can offer in that, then I think it is important to share.
Yeah.
And I, like Aggie brilliantly reminds me a lot of the time that there are things that I can share more of instead of my life looking so just perfect and curated, which I think a lot of us fall into that trap of just sharing these good moments, to remind myself that actually some of the challenges that I've faced in the course of the last few years can be shared with the lens of hopefully this can support someone else's journey or what they're going through in this given moment.
I love that. Love that. Jacob, what is your definition of creativity?
That's a big question. What's my definition of creativity? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is any point where I feel like what I'm doing is just a pure extension of me. When I'm behind the camera and like I'm in that flow state and I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing, but it's happening. That to me is like the purest form of creativity for me. And it's the point that I love doing what I do the most.
Love that. So it's essentially a flow state, right? So we talk about Shakti, Chi, Prana, which is all defined as life force energy. Yeah. Do you have specifically? Do you just wake up and innately have this desire to create because it's just flowing through you, or do you have some practices that usually help get you into that mode?
Yeah, great. I mean, firstly, it's letting my Aura ring tell me whether I slept well or not, which I... No, I've stopped looking at it now. Yeah. It's like, unless it tells me it's good, and then I'm like, cool, I'll have a good day. No, but I have a few practices. I like to journal in the morning. I also just have a few rituals that I like doing. Like, I love making my coffee in the morning, and I really enjoy getting into that process. And for me, there's like an art to it, and there's a focus, and there's a creativity to it with the latte art and all of this. That like I kind of start like getting myself in that mode, even from that moment. I'm a big fan of going to bed early. Like, I go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
8:30,
and like I'm like I'm in bed early around that time, just like, but like slowing down.
Oh, okay.
Like not sleeping. Like I like, my wife's a biohacker. Like we have everything in the house. we have all sorts of PEMF mats and like chi machines and red lights and this and that. So we have a pretty solid setup. And I do like to use it. And I definitely feel like that slowdown in the evening allows me to, waking up 5:30, 6 o'clock. Like I'm really, I've had a good night's rest, and I know I needed this kind of like 8-hour mark of sleep to have a productive day. And then I get into it, and typically just try and go with less of like, I don't like to get on my phone straight away. I definitely do it sometimes because we're human, and pick up your phone, but then I feel like you're constantly in a game of catch up versus like taking control of the day and starting with what I actually want to start with versus going, oh fuck, I have an email that I need to reply to in this, and then suddenly it's 10 a.m. and you haven't done what you actually wanted to do.
Yeah, I think those practices are so important, especially in the morning. And I think that a lot of us, maybe we think that having like that like that Shakti or that Chi or that Prana, it means that like creativity should be flowing through you at all times. And that's just not reality. That's not reality. It's always there, right? That flow is always there. That creativity is always there, but it's dormant. So it's really important to have some of these practices. And a lot of times they're quiet practices. It could be just meditation. It could be movement. It could be journaling, they were saying, or making your coffee or whatever it is that awakens that natural flow and prana and creativity. So
yeah, and it's not getting, again, back to the phone. It's not getting distracted of falling into things that you have to do. Like I definitely like to try and plan out what I'm doing in order to approach the day in the best way. And I think that definitely helps with my creativity. But I also so many times where I'm like, got a shoot coming up, and I'm like, I don't know how to approach this. Like, I have no creative ideas, or like we're coming up with creative concepts for a client, and my brain is just like not in that place. And I think I have to remind myself not to get frustrated at myself. Again, it's a reflection of how I speak to myself as the output that I'm going to give to the world.
Yeah.
So like that kindness to myself, stepping back, doing something different, fucking going cycling. I love to cycle, practicing a different skill, doing something to just like take the mind off to then come back.
Yeah.
Really helps.
I love that. It reminded me of a campaign that you did for Panasonic Lumix.
Well, that was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
Went
And it's a cool campaign, and you guys should go out and check it out. I love it though, but it's this thing where you're kind of like texting your mom, and you're kind of like telling her that you're burnt out, right? And then when you're burned out, you go out and you shoot late at night, right? You get in your car and you go shoot late at night. In that campaign, it seemed like you had a lot of creative leeway in that. Now, when you do campaigns, though, with other companies like Marriott or Bugatti or Audi, do you get as much creative leeway as you would get with a campaign like you did that there? Or you get more structure and sort of like you get pigeonholed into stuff?
I think it really depends on the client. And some clients, you get both. Like Marriott Bonvoy's been a long-term client of ours, and a lot of the time, like it began with them, hey, we have an idea. This is what we want to do. Can you just execute on that idea? And we become just the production partner. And other times we did a shoot for them. They're partnered with the NFL and Jason Kelsey, and they told us about it 2 weeks before everything had to be shot, and everything had to be delivered 2 weeks after for the start of the NFL season. We had a 4-hour shoot window with Jason Kelsey in Philadelphia. We had 27 social pieces of content to film with him. And they gave us nothing. So it's like, then it's like all hands on deck, come up with creative, build the whole thing, shoot, edit, deliver.
How was shooting with him, by the way?
He made life so easy. Like if he wasn't as good on camera, we would not have done that in 4 hours. Yeah. But like he's confident, he gets it. It's one of the few people I've like fed lines to, and he's like, okay, and then just does it straight up. Yeah. Which is fun. Those people are great. I like working with talent. I think we work with some really amazing people, and it brings a breath of fresh air into things. But equally, it's to your point and to your question, I guess, it's an ebb and flow depending on the brand. I personally love coming up with creative and then building on an idea that we've come up with that's been approved by a brand, but I'm also not opposed to them. Oh, we have an idea. Can you execute? Great. Easy.
Yeah. So you don't feel like it goes against your authenticity or whatever, because it's not, unless you're involved specifically in the shoot, and then you're like, okay, I want to bring my own juice to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think like my company is way bigger than me. You know, it's way more important than what my person. We're creating content for a brand. We're going to approach it from a way of how can we best support through our skill set and through our knowledge. Maybe they have an idea and we say, actually, like, what if you thought about this? But I'm not going to force our idea onto a brand that ultimately doesn't want it, because I think it's we're creating for them. And I think that's an important distinction, that we want to make sure that what we're doing is value to the people we're working with, because you build long-term relationships as well.
Yeah. So you built an epic career in a really competitive space. So that's amazing, Jacob. What makes you truly stand out?
What makes us stand out? I think 15 years ago, I picked up a camera. 12 years ago, jumped on Instagram. And I think from that point, I was looking at how do I create content for social. And I think back when I was working, I worked at a company called Beautiful Destinations. And back then, we'd coined a term called social first content. No one was talking about social first content then, but it's essentially how you look at the model of what traditional content creation is for brands. And it's like you're shooting a TV spot, and then that TV spot is cut up into different pieces and finds its way onto social media. Social first is exactly as it sounds, putting social media first, the content that works for social, putting that first, and then driving that to TV. Yeah, it's what people want to see. It's what people engage with. It's what we know works on, the biggest social media platforms in the world. So our model like that, I think, is something that we really push on. But it's also approaching things just with a mindset that you don't need a bigger team. You can do things with a smaller team, more nimble, more efficient. That doesn't mean brands pay us any less, because I'm not trying to bring down the industry in terms of standards. And I think there's a distinction between the two. Like the work we create is as high of a quality as you would with a 40-person crew, but a lot of the time you just don't need it. And if you're trying to be more nimble and more efficient and get more done, do 25 concepts in 4 hours. Like if you do that with a 40-person crew, you're not going to get there. There's ways that you have to shift it that I think we're very, very good at.
Love that. That's a great mentality. And What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying the show. If you love the show, please share it with a homie. It would mean the world to me. Also want to let you know that you can check out sebastiannam.com for more resources like this, and also www.goglobal.agency, a digital marketing agency that's end-to-end, helping purpose-driven and mission-driven brands scale their impact. Again, that's goglobal.agency or sebastiannam.com. Please hit me up straight up on Instagram, DM me, ask me questions. I'd love to connect with you and see what you thought about this episode or other episodes and what you want to hear more of. Much love. That's crazy you guys were thinking about social first, like you said, like 12 years ago. I bet by default, a lot of you, if you think about content today, like just by default, you're thinking social first, right? How many of us are thinking social first when you're doing content? Yeah, it's a lot of us, right? So that now is almost,
the standard.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, and I was just talking to one of the guys here about this kind of interesting world now where brands are looking less to go, hey, I want to put all of our money into a TV spot, and they're kind of in this middle ground where they want to put their money actually into this kind of high end social content, which is shot in the like that content could end up as a TV spot. It's shot as well as it could be to be on TV, but they don't want it going on TV. They'd rather put their ad spend and everything just into social, but do it with a slightly higher elevated approach to content that isn't just UGC super simple basic content, which, don't get me wrong, that I think you need both, and you really do, to tap into different markets. But like that spend on marketing is, I've noticed, going less into big TV commercials and more into this higher end.
Well, you notice now big TV commercials and big brands that part of their clips will just have like the borders on the side because they were shot vertical.
Exactly.
So trends are constantly shifting. The algorithm is constantly changing. It's something that probably annoys the shit out of all of us, right? All the time. Do you have like a secret or a practice or something that you do to try to stay on top of it or even create the trends?
That's a great question. I definitely get frustrated about how Instagram changes, and I have to remind myself that it's changing, and if you don't change with it, then you're going to fall behind.
We were just talking about it. You were saying like I get less. I feel like I get less views when I'm in a different location or whatever.
I notice things like that. I think my audience for many years was focused on one thing, and then you start sharing something else, and you start to grow your audience to that regard. But then your other audience is like, well, I like the stuff you used to do, and then you start sharing this, and then suddenly your audience is like, well, what do you even talk about? Because I share just what I like to share. And I think beforehand I was very particular. If I have to share this, I have to share that to make sure it fits with what I'm doing. But I like sharing stuff about my relationship. I like sharing the work that our production company's done, the stuff that I've shot, things, skydiving, whatever these different things are. But I do think it has an effect on my engagement. But I think I am less married to my engagement now because I used to do a lot of influencer jobs, and the big angle for that was, of course, how many likes do you get, how many followers do you have, like all of these metrics. The angle I push now is, well, work with me for the quality of the work that we create, because that's got way more longevity than the number of followers I have and your post being live for 24 hours.
I think that's a good lesson for everybody, really, and for all of us here, whether you have 1 million followers or 1,000 followers, right? First of all, the frustrations are the same. I think that all of us experience the same frustrations regardless of the amount of followers that we have. And I think that the authenticity and the quality is also regardless of how many followers or how much a following you have.
There's a few little. So I went to an event at the Instagram spot in Marina Del Rey or in that area, and they were kind of talking. You see it, like you can have a reel. Like they recommend posting reels, they recommend posting carousels of photos. They're like the two biggest things they recommend. That's what's being pushed. A single photo post typically isn't going to do as well. Reels have, and then the biggest metric they look at is shareability. So it's like they're looking at how many shares can you get within a certain time period, and then obviously for that to continue in order for things to kind of start to spiral. But I see it with like a piece of content I'll post 3 weeks later. It's like, oh, this has suddenly had 50,000 likes. I'm like, where did that
interesting
engagement? It's like sometimes it gets picked up in different ways, but I think consistency. I mean, everyone says the same thing. Consistency of how many times you post, which I don't do, so I'm already out of it. I post when I find something I want to post, so I can't complain because I'm not doing what they're telling me to do.
Right.
But there are some certain things that you can do in order to have better success. But reels and carousels are definitely your two main posting methods. Stories also just don't get reach to people outside your following, and then you've got to think how many people post stories versus how many people everyone follows for you to be in that first set of 5 stories. Like it's
because you're not going to watch like 60 of them.
Yeah, unless you're sucked into the algorithm, which, you know, does happen. That's, you know, we're not perfect. I get sucked there scrolling. Yeah. But it's like, it's rare that you're going to be up in that for anyone.
What are your top 2 favorite AI tools that you're using today on the regular?
I mean, I use ChatGPT almost every day.
Yeah.
I think just for supporting different aspects of our business, I found it's not great for creative ideas. But we have a pitch that we're doing right now, which was to shoot destination content for like nearly 80 destinations this airline flies to. And I was like, okay, how do I approach this from the most efficient standpoint that I can? Like, we want to do the least number of trips, but also package each destination close to one another. So it's like stuff like that. I'm like, cool, here's the 80 destinations. Give me the trips that make the most sense to do together, how long they're going to take, all of this.
That's a crazy amount. Yeah.
And it's like,
so the logistics.
So like logistical, super helpful.
Right.
Like, I just enjoy it. You can also like Aggie uses it daily as well for support on like so many different aspects of her business, because once you start to build a relationship with her and it remembers things, like she has her book fully uploaded. She has various different podcasts, everything, all this information about her that it can pull from and reference in every response it gives. So I use that. And then obviously editing tools are a big thing. There's a ton of amazing.
What's your favorite ones?
I mean, the standard Adobe stuff and Photoshop and Lightroom are both really game changing. The Photoshop like cleanup tools for photos are fantastic. I just saw yesterday, I think it's Topaz Labs, or however you pronounce it. They're doing if you have an out of focus photo, the AI will bring it back into focus, which is like,
that's huge,
wild. And I know it's early in what they're doing. Yeah, like that's crazy. Yeah, and like the at least the what's it called? The example they showed, it was impressive. Yeah. But so anyway, like stuff like that, I think is really powerful. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with AI. But I think it's great. I'm using it to where I feel like I need it right now, but I'm always open to finding new things. Like I use for finding images for our pitch decks, for reference images. You know, we pull from different films and different things to show the vibe of what we're going to create. And a ton of the tools that I use AI to categorize and find across the internet. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of just gems out there, and I think I think it's also about not allowing it to feel overwhelming, because I think that naturally most of us feel some sort of overwhelm with it, and there's this sort of like subconscious easy way to get into fear about like, oh, it's just going to take my job or this part of the job or this or that. It's like, no, just sit with it and actually spend some hours like learning and messing up and sucking at it and then getting better at it and things like that, right? So I think that's really important when it comes to AI, at least personally. Yeah. We were just talking about the GPTs, like for example, like I don't know if anyone here's messed with like custom GPTs, when you can build your own custom GPT. So that's what you were saying about Aggie, like she like uploaded her whole book so that it learns your voice, and then there's just so much you could do beyond just a search.
You can have a conversation with it now on a phone. Like you literally just press record and it like will speak back to you as if it sounds like a real human. It's terrifying. So real. It's amazing. But I do think it's one of those things, like embrace it. Like it's not going away. So find a way to use it. Like I'm not worried about it taking my job as a photographer at a production company. At least not yet. Maybe it will.
Yeah, like the robots.
I think it's I'm comfortable with what we're doing, and I'm like, cool. If that's a tool that's out there to be used, use it.
Yeah. So the world has been catching on more and more to conscious brands, to purpose-driven movements, mission-driven movements. Are you starting to see that more with some of the clients that you have, some of the global brands that are really building purpose and consciousness into the marketing campaigns or into the production campaigns?
Yeah, I think a lot of big brands are definitely under a lot of scrutiny for how they approach things and what they do and what their kind of give back causes are and all these different things. Like I know Marriott has a ton of initiatives of how they approach just a more personal, down to earth message than just being a big corporate brand. I work a lot in the Middle East, and their whole angle is like how do we make ourselves feel more approachable? Because someone like Saudi, it's like, I mean, it's not easy to. Dubai's done a lot of a better job, and I think we've worked on projects that just have a much more authenticity to them, and I think that's where we're at right now. Like what we want to bring to the table is creating content that obviously drives interest, drives clicks, drives all of this, but like how we approach a shoot personally. Like I want a diverse crew. Like I don't just want to work with other white males like me, like on that place for a work side of things. Like I want to make sure that we are hiring talent from across the board to make sure that how we approach it from our side is good. And then, you know, other aspects of different brands that we're working with I'm starting to see it, but it's a slow process with big corporate brands. And, you know, but they are, like I said, under a lot of scrutiny to kind of get that message across.
And I'm sure when you're doing that on your own with your teams, you see better results. You get more creativity that way.
Absolutely. Like we just launched a like a little subsidiary to Jacob Media called Social First. And it's essentially like supporting up and coming talent and representing them, because we do so many different productions where we pull from people we like to work with, and we find this person for this and this person for this and this person for this. But like I wanted to basically formalize something where we get to support up and coming creators who are insanely talented, but they don't really know how to manage themselves, command good rates for their work, like know the business side. Like we know the business side. I want to support them in getting them great work, getting them good rates, and build out this kind of insanely talented army of people that we get to do. So that from my side is a big passion, because I feel like I tapped into the business quite early on of like enjoying it, enjoying pitching people, coming up with ideas, being in rooms and sharing that stuff. And then I noticed a lot of people in our world, they're really talented, but they don't either want to do the business, which is totally fair enough. Most people don't when you're creative, but others just like, they don't value themselves enough. And I think they're not commanding what they should be.
I love that you're doing that. Yeah. At my agency, Go Global Agency, I really approach it that way as well. And there's just so much diversity and people working for us from different parts of the world. And it really allows that aspect allows so much creativity. Because like when you're in different, like we just get in our own bubble, man, like here, like we're in our West Side bubble. I mean, like just crossing the 405 is wild out here. You know what I mean?
Passport out and everything.
Exactly. So just getting that creativity and ideas from different parts of the world and different cultures just makes everything so much better.
Yeah, we do a lot of jobs all over the world, and my first approach is, who do we know in that place to work with them? Like I'd much rather work with a local crew. Yeah. For one, it like supports people there instead of just us coming in, shooting and leaving, kind of just very much taking. Right. Whereas like if we can support with a couple of jobs for people that work in the area, fuck yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah. So that's kind of our main approach. And then obviously, depending on different things, we fly people in as necessary. But like the main focus is, like supporting local talent for sure.
Love that. Love that. Was there a moment, Jacob, when you had a big break in terms of like in your following, and then there was like this transition from, influencer to just production company, right?
I think there's a few different points. There was the point when I left Beautiful Destinations. I've been there for 3 years. I was building my own kind of social following on the side. And I was getting offered opportunities that were like single opportunities that were matching my salary. And I was not allowed to do them based on the contract I was in. It like, for me, just didn't make any sense. So there was this kind of like big moment of like, whoa, I'm going and leaving a comfortable job, even though I know I've got these cool opportunities potentially there, people saying that they want to work with me and whatnot. So it was kind of a big leap of faith to go, hey, I'm going to leave, focus on my own journey, and essentially build my own thing, whatever that thing was going to be. But I didn't really jump into that for a while. Like I just was freelance for 3 years. I was living in Bali, hanging out, doing influencer jobs. Like it was fun, but I wasn't building a business. And I think I've gone through different businesses with friends and different ideas that we've tried to do. But the one thing that's remained consistent is my company, Jacob Media. It's always kind of been there. So I kind of had the bit more of an aha moment, maybe like 2.5, 3 years ago, where I was just like, this is the one thing I've always come back to. Like I've tried to build different things with different things that have not panned out. Like this has always been there. Why would I not just put 100% effort into building this? And I think it's built more than just this production company. Like we definitely are becoming a creative agency that supports across a full service spectrum of needs for a client. But I definitely felt that it was just a shift in my own mindset that I could actually do it, and the belief I had. I think a lot of the times I didn't believe I was smart enough to run a business. And I think when I was at school, I never felt like I was smart enough until I picked up a camera and I was like, oh, I can do this. This feels something I'm aligned to.
So you feel that the mindset shift was actually bigger than anything that you did on social media or that you did that to create, yeah?
Yeah. Social media is like very pushing out, right? It's like giving out stuff, sharing. Like I don't feel like the work I've done within has been a bigger impact for me of how I approach my business, which I think
love that.
Something I was the classic, oh, I'm good. I don't have anything wrong with me. I'm always like, you've got your own shit to deal with. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And then you finally open Pandora's box and you're like, oh, nice. Here's where the real work is, and here's where I actually get to grow. And then you commit to that.
Is there anything else that you want to share from that? Like, was there something specific? Was it like a therapy session? Was it like a meditation? Was it a conversation that began that shift, or was it a slow process?
I think there was a couple of things. There's just been kind of ongoing. Like when my wife and I broke up 2 years ago. We weren't married then, but we broke up for 6 months, and that was like a big rip apart of my whole world. And that was like a definite like, okay, shit, like I know I'm not showing up in the way that I should be, and looking at my own demons and my own issues. So that was a big start, and was kind of working through all of that. And then the other big thing that I constantly put away and didn't want to deal with, I hadn't ever met my biological father ever. So in January of this year, I met him for the first time, which was like a wild moment for me. That was another big piece of me feeling like I'd always maintained this hate for him, supporting my, protecting my mum, and very much like always just, I hate this man. That was it. And I think subconsciously, what I didn't realize, I was kind of saying I hated half of myself. And very hard on myself, and that journey of being very hard on myself, I think, served me for a little while to push and focus on what I was doing, but at some point it stunts your growth. And so unlocking that for me, realizing this man is like, he was 30 when he left, is like literally my age. I'm like, fair enough, like shit happens. Like you did that, my mom did this, and everyone's fine. No one's bad off for it. I ripped the Band-Aid off for that, and now my mum and him are hanging out. My mum and dad, who's my non-biological dad, and my biological dad are hanging out. Like they're all like friends. Which if I told them a year ago that would be the case, joke. So anyway, that's a big part of it for me. But also just accepting that I think there's always some work to be done.
Always.
And to look at any situation, as I said at the beginning, of how am I responsible within this situation? To look at it and not just take the blame for everything.
Totally.
It's not, but it's like, how do you look at it from a lens of, okay, what did I do to show up here? Put myself in the other person's shoes, put myself really into my shoes, look at my VR versus someone else's VR, and realize that we're all looking at the same situation from different perspectives.
Totally. I love that. I think that what you said there is super powerful. How am I responsible for the situation? Also, how am I responding, whether or not I'm responsible? Excuse me. And I was thinking about, it's crazy what you're saying, like I was, hating this person that I didn't even know, subconsciously thinking that I was protecting someone else. It's crazy what our mind does. And in terms of the perspectives, that's so important. I like to do this thing where when I kind of get in my head too, I call it the Google zoom out, and I kind of see myself there, and I zoom out just a little bit, and I see myself there, and then I zoom out a bit more, and I kind of zoom out, and I can kind of see like Santa Monica, Venice, whatever. I keep zooming out, and then all of a sudden you're like, that ain't shit, right? Like whatever I'm like in my head about, not a big deal, right?
Yeah, I think my similarity to that is the reminder. I said it a second ago, but like everyone's wearing their own VR headset, and in that VR, you're like clouded by all these different things that you're seeing within your VR, and it's impossible to see someone else's perspective or really see your own unless you lift that VR and like try and get a better understanding of what's happening. And I think it's been really important to me to kind of like not just to understand that we're all going through our own process. Take things less personally, like focus on our own thing. Like everyone is just a reflection,
Love that.
Yeah, we're all mirrors.
Love that. Well, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions before I open it up to the audience here. Do you have any advice for someone who is just getting started out? They don't have the following, they don't have the fancy equipment, they don't have the budgets. What advice do you have to them that want to create?
I mean, I think you can create with anything. I know that's a cop out of an answer, but I genuinely think you do. Like I shoot a load of stuff I love on my iPhone. And I think most people, if they're getting into it, not everyone, obviously, but most people have an iPhone that they can use. So I think if you're trying to be creative in that world, photography, videography, like use the tools that you have available. But I would also, if you're looking, I spoke to someone about this recently. They were like, hey, I want to go, I've been doing photography or videography for a little while. Like I have a full-time job. I want to go and pursue this. Just set yourself up for success, or at least try to. Like give yourself a financial backing for a year of salary or like savings that you have, so you don't have to stress about the one thing that you're going to stress about, which is money. when you're going freelance and focusing on, you're going to worry about when's my next paycheck coming in. I still worry about that. Like we have jobs and I'm like, because it's not consistent. You know, you have some consistent clients, but like, it's like, I see him nodding. It's like, you don't like, it's like, okay, cool. This was great. This was amazing. And then you have 2 months of nothing. And it's like that's a quote unquote scary way to live.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it for the first time, like make sure you have some kind of savings.
Yeah.
I would always say a year plus and more than you think you need.
Right.
I know that I spend more than I think I do on things. It's just like I look at my thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good. And I'm like, oh, actually, no, there's this and there's this and these little things. So it's like, I think that's really, really important. But just from a stepping into being creative, I've also just realized there are so many different ways to be creative. Like picking up DJ lessons. I was like, wow, this is another avenue of creativity. Like Mariah's piano lessons. I'm like, great. Like, this is cool. Like those avenues support my creativity. But if you're just trying to look into get into the world that I guess I'm in, start with the tools that you have available. And believe that you can do it with that. If you believe that it's not good enough, it will never be good enough.
I like that advice, though, in terms of not being in a mode of scarcity when you're trying to create, because if you're worried about that money, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely some people that will create amazing things out of need. Absolutely. I think that great things get created out of need. But I think in general, if you're really looking to kind of be in flow, it's tough if you're like really worried about putting food on the table.
Well, because then you do it out of a place of lack versus feeling like you can do it, which is I do that.
Right.
I'm subject to like, oh, I have to get this. And if I don't, then this happens.
Yeah.
And then you don't get it because you've put out the energy that you're not going to get it. Like if you believe you already have it, then you're like, great, doesn't matter. If it comes, if it doesn't come, I'm good.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like really chasing it, then it puts it further away.
Right. Right. Jacob, I don't know if you think about legacy or that word particularly, but do you think about what kind of impact you want to leave on the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, through the work we create, like, you know, I want to create work that does have huge impact for the brands that we work with as a kind of a company level. And as I mentioned with Social First, like I really want to be able to be a brand, and we already are. I say that, let me repeat that. We're a brand that is supporting creators and their journeys, and I want to continue to expand that. As I think it's an important part of anyone in our industry to support the people that they're surrounded with. Like we're all in this together, yet there is more than enough jobs, more than enough money to go around. Like let's just help everyone rise. The rising tide rises all ships. Like I'm super down with that motto.
Love that. I'll ask you one final question before we open it up here. What are 2 traits that a conscious leader must embody today?
2 traits that a conscious leader must embody. That's a great question. The first, I wonder if this is what a conscious leader would do, but I say the first thing is like, you know, invest in your team. Like really, truly invest in the people that are investing their time into you. You know, I have full-time people that work with me, and like, I know I would not be able to be doing what we're doing without those people. So to show up for them, to remind yourself that you are supporting their livelihood through their salaries. Was a terrifying thing for me when I started hiring full-time people. But I'm like, oh wow, like if I don't put my best effort in, these people suffer the consequences to that. So I think that's a really important thing for me. And I think that the second one, that's a tough one. I think that I would, I want to make sure that with how I show up, you want to show up for people the way you want to be showed up for. And I think that in order for us to do that, like collaboration is the biggest piece of it, by tapping into skill sets of others and me sticking in my lane of genius and allowing other people to be in their lane of genius, I think is how we all grow. So really trusting that in others.
Love that. Love those 2, Jacob. So we're going to open it up for a couple of questions from the audience. Before I do so, by the way, guys, there's a lot of these great conversations like these here at the Kin. Next Wednesday night, we're going to have another live recording of the Conscious Profits Unfiltered podcast and panel. So if you guys are around, please do come. And okay, question. I saw a hand come up. Go ahead. Oh, hold on. We'll do the mic so it's recorded in there. Right.
So obviously the industry is kind of in an uproar right now. At least in Los Angeles it is. How do you, with Jacob Media, keep track with the clients that you're working with? How do you continue to get work versus production companies maybe like Stepped or other studios like that? I think a lot of it is, packaging social media content versus just your one, commercial deliverable. How do you stay on the cutting edge of that with all the jobs?
That's a great question. I think that, there's definitely, as I said, there's definitely a shift of what brands are looking for. And I think we have to remind ourselves not to be so rigid in what our offering is and what we're doing. Like that fluidity to be like, okay, cool, this brand wants this and this brand wants this. There's not just say you have to do this and you have to fit with our model. Like we work within what a brand needs. So there's two parts of it. The getting clients, that's pretty much my main focus is networking relationships, and we do way less of bidding alongside other production companies for work versus building relationships with people and getting work through different avenues. That's just been my approach to things, and it's worked well. I think I love working with a brand where we have a personal relationship with them. We can build that long-term trust. And then in terms of packaging up what we offer, I think I would always go for the full scope of everything. Like if I said to them, we only do a TVC, then I would be limiting our ability to then tap into their social media budget. Equally, if we said, oh, we're only going to do the social content for you, why? Like we're leaving a lot on the table. So I think by us offering a full spectrum of things, including a strategy and a way to approach the content that we create for the brand to post, puts us in a stronger position. But it is an interesting industry and it is changing a lot. And I think by having more of a foot in the social world really helps.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Do you work with a lot of the clients that you have built previously prior to on your own? Have you brought that into Jacob Media?
Yeah. So and I've noticed time and time again, it's the people like I have had brilliant relationships at brands, and then that person leaves the brand and you realize you don't work with that brand anymore. You work with where the person's moved to. And it's happened time and time again. And that's why I'm such a big advocate of building those relationships and checking in with people, see what they're up to. There's always, and from a business perspective, there's always money on the table with a lot of these people, but half the time they've just forgotten about you because you haven't been, checking in, which is why would they remember about you if you haven't checked in? But I've reached out to someone being like, hey, just checking in, seeing how things are going at X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, funny you reached out. We're doing this. And it's been sat there on the table and it's a 7-figure thing. And you're like, what the fuck? I could have missed that. So it's I think for us, it's really maintaining and building those relationships.
Awesome. Thank you.
Don't miss out on 7-figure things by not asking how you
terrifies me. Or just there. And I'm like, who do I need to speak to?
It's wild. Right here, second row.
Okay, so I also do travel content. I do a lot of my own pitching. I'm smaller, but throughout 4 years, I've gotten good with pitching. But down the line, and I'm curious because as you've grown, are you still, and you kind of talked about this, but also with WME being signed by that, how much of it is you still kind of doing your own pitching, having this business background that you mentioned, that helped you small and get you where you are, versus WME and kind of, bringing opportunities to you, and as someone who's obviously doing a lot within the business, how do you balance your time with where you're spending it, whether it's reaching out to people or that kind of thing? At what point are you okay, maybe I'll hand this off to someone else?
Totally. Two great questions. So the WME stuff is really exciting. That was literally 2 weeks ago. So thank you. Jacob Media signed WME for 2 years to basically have them represent all the amazing things that the company's doing. So my hope is that they support us in a lot of that outreach, as alongside myself, they tap us into brands within their network and we get to access that. That's kind of where I see their role being really valuable for us, but also having this kind of expert business mentality. They know how to pitch better than anyone. They do it for the biggest A-list celebrities and talent in the world. So that's kind of where that's going. Then your other question was in terms of how I pitch a little bit, and then also how I balance the two.
How are you, as like you're doing a lot of things within your business?
Yeah.
So how are you balancing where you're spending your time? Like you're still that expert in that space with pitching. So how are you like balancing the time between pitching and then also doing creative stuff? And it's also, knowing that's your expertise.
Sorry to make you repeat. Just
it's like I feel like that's my expertise, and a lot of people come to me for it. But like down the line, it's like, do I want to keep spending my time on this? Maybe I want to spend more time on the creative stuff, so maybe I want to hand it off. But at the same time, it's like a skill that like you learn so early on, and that's what helped get you there.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you balance that?
I think I mentioned this a second ago. Like I like to focus on my lane of genius and let other people focus on theirs. I think my lane of genius is in a way this kind of like twofold part where like I love being behind the camera. I've done it for many years. I know I'm very good at it, and I don't need much of an introduction to something to go and just do it. But I think I look at it from, is that going to be the biggest factor in driving my business forward? So I'm kind of shifting more of my focus into the lane that I feel will benefit the business as a whole. And that's through the networking, connecting, pitching deals and stuff like that. And I think on the actual pitching side, like I always go in with the mentality of like, how do I offer up everything a brand or company needs to say yes? Make it as simple as possible for them to turn around and go, this sounds fucking great. Let's do it. And there are so many variables that you don't know, but like I think the way that we structure our pitches is very much giving them everything that they could need in order to say, cool, let's move forward onto the next stage. But I do think it ebbs and flows very much with where I put my time, depending more so on the needs of the business. Beforehand, it was I'm the business because it's just me. So then it's like I kind of have to do everything. And that's maybe where you are. You have to do all these different facets of it because there isn't as many people supporting you. But as that grows, I've just realized, where do I really bring the most value for everyone?
Do you see yourself, like since you recently were signed by WME, and like this 80 flight pitch that you did, like that probably came, that was your idea. You're like, haven't really, thought out how you pitch it to them. Do you still see yourself playing that role? Like, oh, I have this idea. I'm going to pitch it to this brand, this creative vision, or like down the road, would you want like, say like WME doing that?
I think one of our skill sets in the company is coming up with really exciting ideas. And I think WME, their role isn't to come up with the creative. They may say, hey, look, we have a brand that's interested in working with you based on the deck of content that we've shared with them of previous work. Now it's you to go in and come up with the creative, but then they may end up pitching that. Like our relationship is essentially they take 10% from the work that they will bring in, and based on our contract, they don't get access to any of the pre-existing relationships we have. And it's at my discretion as to whether we bring them into something that comes in through a personal relationship of mine, for example. If I'm like, hey, yeah, hand it off to WME to negotiate. But they're definitely more on the business strategy. And as my long-term goal is to really build a much more significant, much bigger agency than where we're currently at. I'm looking to them to support on kind of how we structure that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great questions. Love that. We'll do just one more over there all the way in the back.
Could we?
Yeah. LA. Oh, yeah, I guess. Back row. Yeah.
Anyhow, I have a question for you on, it seems like you are now kind of out of the creating content that lives on your personal, like your social media sites, and you're making content that lives outside of it. So like high production, branded value, but you're helping manage some of these up and coming creators that do rely on the engagement that's being brought on their own platforms. So I'm wondering, how do you talk to them navigating like a brand, maybe like a more traditional brand that has all these certain metrics that they want to hit, but it might go against that content creator's audience. Trying to figure out like, okay, this is what the this is what the brand wants to see, but how do you marry that to the audience?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, especially for creators that obviously have a social following of some kind. And I think with what we're trying to do at Social First is like, I want to put the quality of someone's work a priority over the number of followers that they have, and look to get them jobs that focus on them creating content for a brand, which in that scenario would be obviously them working within the parameters of what the brand needs, because it ultimately, like, we're not creating content for ourselves at that point, we're creating it for the brand we work with. I think then there's the other conversation of, when we're working with a brand who then wants to bring in one of these creators as an influencer who's creating content that's going to go on their page to promote the business. I think it's always a conversation with the brand. I know it from my personal side of things. Like, I look at it as a brand would come to me because they've seen work I've done, so they want a piece of the work that I've done, which innately ties it into stuff that I'm comfortable doing. But then it's always a conversation of, okay, cool, what's the actual idea? And in the context of bringing one of the people we represent at Social First onto a brand campaign as an influencer, I will always prioritize what makes the creator we're working with feel good. If they don't want to do something that doesn't align with their brand, let's not do it. Like, and we'll find someone else that fits their role, or they might just not be the right fit. We're always going to find the right fit. Not every brand fits for everyone, right? So I think, the focus is making sure that anyone we work with is tapped into jobs they want to do. If they're currently doing everything and they're a photographer, videographer, they're doing all of their own edits, they're doing kind of a full scope as a creator, but they want to actually focus on directing, how do we slowly move them into opportunities that focus specifically on that skill set?
So don't shoehorn them into something that might not be a fit.
Exactly. So, and I'm more than happy to say, hey, to a brand, this isn't going to work with the group that we have, but let's go out and find you someone else that does fit, instead of saying, oh, this person has to do this. Like, it's not fun for anyone, because you want to make sure that from a brand perspective, you're getting people that work, especially in an influencer game. Like, you want to make sure those influencers are very relatable to the brand that you have and the audience that you're trying to tap into. But equally, you want to make sure the person that they're working with actually wants to do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, thank you all so much for being here. One thing, whenever I host live events or anything like that, I always like to think about whether it is that you're reading a book, or you're going to an event, or you're listening to a talk or an interview, is like, what is the one golden nugget that you can take with you? Like, how are you really going to take that with you? Because there's so much information, right? If you just take one thing and then implement that, and it changes your life in a positive way, I think it's a big win. So I hope you guys got at least that one golden nugget today. Jacob, you're epic, dude. You're crushing it. Keep doing it. Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much, my man.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you like the show, please subscribe or share with a homie. It means the world to me. And honestly, straight up, just hit me up. The easiest way on Instagram, SEBNAUM. Ask me questions. I want to be here as a resource and a source of inspiration. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. Much love.